DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday. I was, until I got out of my car to walk up the stairs and into this room.
Yes.
Because as I mentioned in passing yesterday, I got stuck in the car wash over the weekend. And it had been, I want to say, like a month or so since I had gotten my car washed. It feels good when you get your car washed, right? It feels good. And then as I exited my vehicle, I noticed that a gang of birds must have crapped all over my hood.
Where did you park? Did you park under a tree?
I don't know when it would have happened.
Oh, wow.
In my driveway.
Yeah.
I went out to lunch with my wife today. Maybe that's when the birds attacked. I don't know.
But it was on your hood.
Yes, all over the hood.
So it had to have happened. You didn't realize it when you went to lunch with your wife?
I wasn't paying attention close.
Oh, okay.
I had the baby too, so
that is distracting.
Yes.
Well, they got
babies are very distracting.
Very much so. Chalk it up to the game, man. They got you. They zeroed in on your car. They knew it was clean, and bam.
This is what I think happened. For those of you who are longtime listeners of this program, I think the turkey that Willy nearly decapitated on the way to Portland last year. Talked to some birds and said, "Hey, go crap on this car."
They got a hit out on both of
receipts.
So that's why I have all these birds in my backyard doing this. Yeah.
I told you a long time ago they were gonna have a hit out on you. They put you two guys pictures are
word
in
travels.
there. Yeah, word
by
travels
air
very swiftly.
Yes. Apparently, Trevor Matich will join the program today at 4:20. We've got a lot to discuss with Trevor and amongst ourselves about the latest in the Brendan Soresby story. So we will do that throughout the program and with Trevor Matich at 4:20. Jeff Marek will join the program at 5 as we discuss the hiring of Chris McFarland by the Nashville Predators. We'll look ahead to tonight's Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. So looking forward to catching up with Jeff. But we begin today's show with last night's game in the NBA Finals. The San Antonio Spurs in a must-win game, effectively a must-win game, because no team has ever rebounded from a 3-0 series deficit in NBA history. The Spurs go into Madison Square Garden. The Stars were out last night in New York City. The Spurs win 115-111. Victor Wembanyama, 32 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. And I am glad that the Spurs won because, frankly, I want more of this series. Plus, once the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final are over, sports gets real boring for a while. So I want these two series to go the distance. But last night's game was a good one. Schoolyard rules last night at Madison Square Garden.
It was bad. It was bad.
They've got to do something.
Yeah.
They've got to do something. It's just not. They've let it go too far, and now it's to the point where, like, it's still a great competition. There were still great plays, but there are wrestling matches going on all over the court. All over the court.
Yeah. It's a physical brand of basketball that we have not seen in a very long time. I think the last time I've seen this brand of basketball is when the Detroit Pistons won their last championship with Rasheed Wallace and all those guys. And you saw this physical brand of basketball. Even then, the NBA really didn't like it because they want to keep their superstars healthy. And when you're playing a brand of basketball like that, sometimes that's not going to happen. But they let that first half. They were playing at the Rucker. They might as well have been playing at the Rucker.
Yeah.
That's just how physical. And my thing was, if you're going to allow the game to be physical like that, you have to rein it into a degree. But if you're going to just let it ride the whole game. But it seemed like the second half, somebody got in their ear, was like, hey, listen, it's getting a little testy out there. We need to slow this down. And they started calling fouls. So listen, I'm sure that's one of the hardest jobs. It has to be the hardest officiating job out there because, you're up close with these guys and, you it's sort of like, how do you call fouls on Shaq? Or
It
how
does
do you
remind
call
me of
fouls
those
on
days.
Wemby?
Because it's so hard to officiate a
Mhm.
unique player like a Shaq. And now Wemby is the same way. It's like you can't just let him do whatever,
Yeah.
or you're never going to be able to stop him. So you can see how it evolves. It's like we have to be as physical as we can possibly be.
Mhm.
As long as they let us get away with it, keep doing it. Like they're trying to
Mhm.
wrestle him basically. Like even when he doesn't have the ball, when he's on the other side of the
beating him
court,
up.
they're grabbing him with two arms. They're and he has no choice but to try to combat it. That's why there was so much scuttlebutt over his.
I think he's going to get fined for that play.
He might, but
Yeah.
if you look, why is he doing that? It's
Mhm.
because Brunson has his jersey. He's reached underneath and he's got a fistful of his jersey.
Yeah, you got
So it's like, get off of me.
it's like, but he ain't
They're
have
not
to push him
calling
in the
it.
back of the head, and he basically elbowed him and pushed him
Well,
in the
you
back
know
of the
who
head.
really defended him?
Who?
Shaq.
Oh,
At
yeah,
halftime, because
yeah.
Shaq's been there. It's like, look, if you're going to keep doing this,
Mhm.
I have to have some checks and balances here.
Yeah, and that's why I say
I
they
can't
have
just let
to,
you come and grab me and do this. That's not basketball.
but they have to figure out a way to officiate this game. Whereas, okay, if you're going to allow them to be physical, then because San Antonio was doing the same thing, they were grabbing,
Yes.
pulling, pushing, and so if you're going to allow that to happen, then let it go. Don't all of a sudden start making these calls in the second half, and everybody's looking like, man, you're changing the whole tenor of the game. You're slowing it down, whereas before it was up and down. But either way, it was a great game. And like you, Adam, I want to see this thing go 7. I wouldn't feel bad if the Knicks won in 6, but I would love to see it go 7.
One of my least favorite things is when a coach whines about free throw disparity. And that's what Mike Brown did last night after the game. The Spurs outshot the Knicks from the free throw line in the second half, I believe, 24-8. For some reason, that always bothers me when a coach complains about free throw disparity.
That's all. That's just gamesmanship. Every great coach does it, especially if the discrepancy is as it was the last night with the free throws. Every coach from Phil Jackson to the coach in Gold State, what's his name? Steve Kerr. They all do it, especially if they lost the game and they feel, okay, we didn't play well, we could have played better. That team played really well too. But they try to look for those little things that they know may tilt the scale just a tad bit the
Looking
next
for
game.
some calls
exactly,
the next game. No
absolutely.
question.
So it's just games. I don't mind it. It's games and shit.
Adam, you would have loved this. This is my favorite story to tell as far as free throw discrepancy. And some Vanderbilt fans might remember this game. They probably do. 1990-91, Rick Pitino and Kentucky, right as he's getting Kentucky going, right? This is his second year at Kentucky. They're still on probation, but they have a really good team. They've got Jamal Mashburn, and they've got the guys who have their names and numbers up in the rafters. They lost the Christian Laettner game the next year when they were back in the tournament. Richie Farmer, John Pelfrey, who became a head coach for a long time, Sean Woods, and Darren Feldhouse. Those are the 4. So it's a really good team. We beat them at Memorial Gym, and we were crushing them. They were a pressing team, so they got behind. The free throws at the end of the game. Vanderbilt 51, Kentucky 7. Rick Pitino at the end of the game, 2 tees, got tossed. And after the game, he whined like a baby. I've never seen that in my whole coaching career. 51 free throws for one team, 7 the other. Our coach is hearing all this. He goes to the podium, Eddie Fogler, and he says, look, we got ahead. We were up by 17 or 18 points. They press. They foul. We go to the free throw line. I mean, it was the flow of the game. Kentucky used to play and force the referee to call fouls. It's kind of like last night, right? They played 10 guys. They would press you the whole game, trap you. They would see how many turnovers they could get, and they were willing to risk fouls to get the turnovers. But on our court, we handled the ball well, and we were the opposite. We were taught the worst thing you can do is foul. So we tried not to foul. So this was the perfect storm. And man, it was awesome watching Pitino walk all the way from his end of the bench. The bench is on the baseline. He has to walk all the way across to get back And man, did he get serenaded by the crowd on the way out? But he whined like a baby, 51-7.
The other thing I was watching last night as I was watching the game was all of the celebrities at courtside. I kept watching Larry David. By the way, Larry David seated 2 seats from Robert Kraft.
Yes.
That was a strange.
Were they in the same group, or
It did not appear they were in the same group.
And who was the guy in between them? I was trying to figure that out. Did anybody know?
I'll
Was
have
that
to
a
look at
famous
the
guy?
pictures.
I couldn't picture him.
But the famous Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where Larry David is sitting courtside at a Lakers game, he stretches out his legs, trips Shaquille O'Neal, injures his knee. I was waiting for that moment to happen. Shaq, of course, in the building last night with the ESPN crew. But I was watching Larry David, Mariska Hargitay and Christopher Maloney from Law and Order. They were very animated. So I was just watching the celebrities. I found myself distracted by the celebrities at courtside, all of the cheering and gesticulating, "Where's my bell?" that they were doing. That was very distracting.
My favorite, my childhood idol, John McEnroe, was there. They showed him and Patti Smythe, the singer. She was in Scandal. She was a good singer for a while. That was awesome. I was like, that's my guy.
I wonder how they pick who's going to sit in those seats, because I'm sure the celebrities that were out there, I'm sure there were many more that wanted those seats. Now, I'm sure guys like Spike Lee and guys that are New York guys, they're all say they will get first dibs.
Tracy Stiller, Chalamet,
exactly. Those
Tracy Morgan,
New York guys, they get first dibs. But
Eli Manning was sitting next to Derek Jeter,
right?
I think.
Yeah. So how did they add more seats? How did they get all these people in there?
I don't know. And they have all the former Knicks.
Exactly. Right? And all the former Knicks were there.
There was the issue.
Larry Johnson.
Luke Cornett goes in to get the ball coming out of the basket, and he clips Josh Hart. Hart goes down and acts like he's dead. And everybody, and Luke's going, "Well, I didn't do anything," and then the next thing you know, here comes John Starks out of the stands. He's standing right under the basket. It's like, "That's John Starks." John, you haven't played in 30 years. Go back and rest.
Man, you gonna tear an ACL? Oh my goodness, man. Yeah, that game brought out the stars, and I'm sure they enjoyed it until the last buzzer.
One texter, Jackson, says, "Don't know if you noticed, DJ Khaled was on his phone the entire game."
Yeah, that's the worst. You cannot do that and be on your phone. You can't do that.
Enjoy the game. Enjoy the moment.
And now we have a feud apparently between the president and Stephen A. Smith. So thank you for that.
Oh, boy.
Really glad that is happening.
Seriously, nobody wants to hear you.
So glad that is happening.
But can we ask one more question though about Robert Kraft? Like, okay, why is he a
Knick fan?
Did he?
I didn't know he was.
Well, that's
a
what I was
fan.
wondering. Is he like the Knicks
guy?
Yeah.
Or did you just say, "I want to be at the game and I'll pay whatever I got to pay"?
Or somebody that was going that is a Knicks fan invited him.
Yeah, I'd love to know the story on that.
Yeah,
like Patriots fans or Celtics fans are going to be going, "What? What's he doing?"
Does he know the owner?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe he and Dolan.
I don't know.
Well, Dolan had the president in his box, so
which
perhaps
means
Kraft would have been there otherwise.
Exactly.
So Kraft had to be ushered to courtside instead.
Yes.
You can't sit in the owner's box. You've got to sit
courtside.
But something about Larry David and Robert Kraft seated right next to each other with one person in between seems like some sort of bit. I was trying to think of some sort of wild Curb Your Enthusiasm style bit involving Larry David 2 seats down from Robert Kraft.
I wonder who else was sort of like an odd mix of people sitting next to each other. I may go back just to watch the sideline view and see some.
Oh man, it's fascinating.
Some people. Well, why is this person sitting next to this person? Are they a part of that group?
But you have to give the Spurs a lot of credit, for dealing with that whole environment and coming out of the gate with a lot of poise, and that was the key. I thought it was to get off to the good start.
Man, Castle he shot
the
lights out.
Yeah,
man, that first half, he basically kept San Antonio rolling by himself. The New York Knicks did shoot well, especially from 3-pointer. Bridges got in early foul trouble. He had to go sit down with 2 fouls early in the first quarter, so that took away some of your 3-point shooting, and he never seemed to get into rhythm really, not like he had been. So it's going to be a really good season. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns played great like he had been playing the previous 2 games. He looked a little tired. He didn't take many shots, but still he looked a little tired. So hopefully, I'm sure the Knicks hope they can have the Karl Anthony Towns back that played the first 2 games, because they're asking him to be extremely physical with Wemby, which is wearing Wemby down, but is wearing Karl Anthony Towns down as well.
One texter says, do y'all know if Luke Cornett is kin to that Cornett lady on Channel 4? Yes, Luke Cornett is Tracy Cornett's son.
They are related.
Yes.
I like how Luke was like, man, what I do? Like, what I do? I wanted to help you up, but then I was like, nah, but what I do?
He's mad. Why are you mad?
Exactly. And then when I watched, I'm like, he didn't even push you. Like, dude, seriously. But that was funny.
Andrew says, new curb plot from last night. Larry David sneezes during the game just as a peanut vendor walks by. Larry sneezes on the ground. Peanut guy trips. Peanuts go flying onto court. Wemby slips on one and gets injured for the rest of the series. Larry is coveted as a hero in New York, but gets a lifetime ban from the city of San Antonio.
That is, yes,
that would
that's
work.
a good
That's
one.
an episode.
That's a good series right there.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on the NBA Finals. Spurs win last night. Game 4 tomorrow at Madison Square Garden. So we'll see if the Spurs can tie it up at MSG tomorrow. But coming up next, the biggest story in sports right now, Brendan Soresby. He received a temporary injunction despite having a gambling addiction. What does the Brendan Soresby ruling say about the state of the NCAA? We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Durham Bulls at First Horizon Park. First pitch is at 6:35 p.m. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure and Social Cantina.
College sports went to DEFCON 1 yesterday, Greeny, and that's rare because the sport has gone so low in so many different circumstances. But everyone but Texas Tech officials were in unanimous agreement that this is one of the worst rulings because it forget whether college players get paid and all the things that go along with it. This is about the integrity of what happens on a Saturday afternoon. And Brendan Soresby bet on games while he was at Indiana. Remember, he went to Cincinnati. He is a transfer. He has not played a down for Texas Tech, and they maintain they haven't done anything wrong. They sent him to rehab. It's a great example for the youth of America, and you can stop laughing now over your cornflakes. But the point is, what happens now?
That was Paul Feinbaum earlier today on ESPN talking about Brendan Soresby. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. All right, here are the facts of the case. Yesterday, a local judge in Texas granted an injunction to allow Brendan Soresby to play next season, despite years of gambling activity, including placing bets on his own team that ended with him entering inpatient treatment for a gambling addiction. Soresby admitted to wagering at least $90,000 on more than 9,000 bets over the course of his college career, including at least 40 bets totaling at least $850 on Indiana football in some capacity when he was a member of the Hoosiers. I can't remember, gentlemen, the last time the sports commentariat was completely aligned on something. I read some scathing columns, and I love a scathing column. I like writing scathing columns. I like reading scathing columns. As I said, everybody seems to be completely aligned on this. In no world should Brendan Soresby be able to play college football this season. And yet, for the time being, it appears he will. So here's the question, Willy Donick. What does the Brendan Soresby ruling say about the state of the NCAA?
This one, I think, would fall out of the reach of blaming the NCAA. I don't really know what they could have done differently, because what has happened is the strategy has become, if you don't like the rules, just go to a court, find the right judge, and get an injunction. And that's the distinction, is you don't even have to win the case. You just have to delay the case. And that is what they've successfully done. Now, we'll see between now and the start of the regular season with the outrage, and it's rightful outrage. And like you said, it's across the board. I haven't seen one person say, yeah, I agree with the judge. There's zero outside of Lubbock, right? I even have to wonder if the Texas Tech people are going, oh boy, I didn't think they were going to say that. Like, I don't think they were expecting to win that case. But that's the strategy. So this is a rare time where people aren't turning and saying, there's another case of the NCAA not having it together. This wasn't their fault, I don't think.
No, the NBA, I mean, you can't blame the NBA, the NCAA for what, this judge decided to do. The rules were in place, and they have not bent that rule for anyone, not that I recall. That's one rule I think across the board, like y'all said, is unanimous. You bet on college, or you bet period in college, then you are subject and more than likely will be suspended for the whole season. But for some reason, now it's different. The rules have changed. Judges, it's like, you being married and your kid comes in. The one thing you tell your kid not to do, he does it. And you and your spouse put him on punishment, but then he goes to his grandfather, and his grandfather says, you know what? He's not on punishment, because if he was staying in his room, he wouldn't be around us. That'd mess with him mentally, and he just won't become. And then all of a sudden, now he gets to come out of his room. It's like, no, we can't do that. There are rules in the house. If you lie, that's one rule. If you lie, you're done. You're on punishment for how many weeks or days. You then can't circumvent us and go to granddad and him decide, okay, he's off punishment. Let us talk about it. But until we talk about it and get what we need to get together, you can go down to little Jimmy's house and play Nintendo all day. No.
That is I think what a lot of people have made the first point is there was no disputing the facts of the case and no disputing what the rules were. It's not like anybody goes to a college campus and says, I don't know what the rule is. I don't know. Am I allowed to gamble? Well, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to go ahead and start gambling. That's not the case. Everybody knows you can't do it. Just like in baseball, when Pete Rose got banned for life, he knew that it was in every clubhouse of every big league park and minor league park. If you bet on bet on baseball, you're out. Lifetime ban, and it's no in between. That was the case with the NCAA. You cannot bet on football. It's a clear open and shut case. And this judge, that's what was baffling. He doesn't go there. He went to what you were
Texas.
saying.
He went to Texas.
Well, but in his decision, he was talking about, he's going to miss out on this and that. That's so not the point.
No, he never mentioned
integrity of the game is everything. You cannot watch a sporting event and say, I wonder what's going on. I wonder if anybody's got some action on this, or I wonder if this game on the level. Like, we've been fortunate in our lifetimes to really not watch games and wonder, even though conspiracy theorists will always wonder. There's always that game go, was the ref on the take or something? Like, somebody will always make a wisecrack about that. But by and large, when we watch games, we don't question whether it's on the level or not, like a pro wrestling match or something like that, right? There's a distinction. And when you rule in his favor like that, you are compromising the distinction. There was one unnamed coach in an article I saw that said, hey, you know what we ought to do? We should, as a team, now that this has been legalized and this is okay, let's just decide what games we want to play hard on and what games we want to lose, and let's all bet based on that.
I have the quote in front of me, by the way. This was from Dan Wetzel's column on ESPN.com from, quote, an aghast. Where's the bell? A lot of bells so far today. An aghast Big 12 coach. Quote, if this is the precedent, then I owe it to my players to bring in people from Las Vegas to teach us how to gamble. Then collectively, we need to decide which games we will play hard in to cover the spread and which ones we won't. I'm supposed to do what's best for my players, and in that case, they would be able to make a lot of money betting on our games. That's the precedent for me, end quote.
Okay, there's a problem here. There's a problem in college sports, period. But there's a problem, and then there are symptoms of that problem. Soresby is the symptom of the problem. He is. The problem is when you allow betting to become a big sponsor of what you're doing, you've opened yourself up for something. It doesn't excuse him for what he did. He doesn't need to be playing, but he's just a symptom of the actual disease. And the disease is, we want more money, so we're going to get in bed with all of these sports and student athletes. Y'all can't bet. Y'all can't bet. Y'all can't do any of these things, but we're going to reap the rewards of it. And now, the players are to an extent with this NIL stuff. But what I'm saying is that the disease is you allowing them in your door. And now because you allowed that vampire in your door, now he's bit you. And now this is what you get, Soresby.
But that's all the more reason why, if you're going to have that, you have to crack down hard.
Exactly.
And they did. So that's why it's not the NCAA's fault. But it's like, Dan Wetzel does some great stuff in his. I think he's got the best one that I've seen.
Do you think they believed anybody would ever challenge like that rule, the NCAA?
I think they're getting used to the fact that a lot of people were just going to find a judge, right? Kirby Smart was talking about that in his case for the SEC to break away from everybody because he's tired of not having any rules, because if you don't like the rule, just go find a judge is really what's happening a lot. So Dan Wetzel, I think, does a really good job. He said there's literally only one league in the world that has this precedent that you can get away with betting on your team. And that's the NCAA, thanks to this one judge. that's unanimous across the globe. You cannot, in any sport anywhere in the world, everybody knows that if you want to have a level sporting event, it's got to be gamble free, and there have to be serious consequences if you are caught.
Eli says, which booster paid this judge off? By the way, the original judge in this case recused himself because he has 2 degrees from Texas Tech. The judge who oversaw the case is a retired judge from Fort Worth who has degrees from UT Arlington and the University of Houston Law Center. So it is what it is, just stating the facts. Here was another quote from Kansas State Athletic Director Gene Taylor to Yahoo Sports that caught my attention. Quote, it's effing bull, you know what, except he did not censor
Fertilizer.
himself. Yeah. Yes, it's effing bull, you know what. I know the kid has a problem. Well, get well and focus on your problem. It is absolutely devastating for him to be able to play when every other sport, no matter the level, deems an athlete ineligible or they are punished severely for betting on their team, end quote. And there have been reports that Georgia and Nebraska have instructed their athletic departments to refrain from scheduling Texas Tech. Reportedly, the Big Ten also scheduled a meeting to discuss not playing Texas Tech. I wonder if it goes that far. Do people refuse to play Texas Tech?
It's a credibility thing. Now, I don't know if somebody else at your university is betting on games. I don't know. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be associated. If we play y'all and it comes out that one of your teammates bet on the game, we don't want to be associated with y'all. Since y'all want to do this, then we're gonna go back and we're gonna think very long about whether we should participate in sports with you guys.
I think Texas Tech does deserve a lot of the blame for this because I think it's been speculated, and I don't know if it's been proven, but obviously Texas Tech helped Soresby get the legal team that he's got. I don't know if they're actually paying the lawyers to make the case, but Texas Tech could take the high road and say, you know what, this kid's got a problem. We want to win football games just like everybody else does, but this isn't right. He needs to take some time away. This isn't right that he's playing. So I think everybody else is just so angry they want to do something. I don't know if it makes any sense to say don't schedule Texas Tech. I don't know how that's going to work, but I do think they've got to stay loud and they've got to put the heat on Texas Tech collectively in one form or another. I don't know if they found the right way. I think that's where it's coming from, but everybody has got to gang up on Texas Tech and say, do the right thing here.
Well, the university,
a guy that has gambled on football should not be eligible to play. That's the NCAA rule. Abide by the NCAA rule. You're in the NCAA. I know a judge did this or that, but you could separate that and do what's right. And everybody knows here what's right.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if Texas Tech is going to do anything. I think it's basically, and one of the texters said, it's the boosters. It's those that are putting the money into the NIL coffers. And if they decide to say, hey, we don't want this kid to play, that's when he will not play. It ain't up to the athletic director nor the president. Because if you supersede those guys and girls, ain't no more money coming through that pipe.
What about
stream.
the coach? Could the coach just say, you know what, Brendan, I admire that you won.
It's the same thing. You
can practice with us, but we're not going to play you.
He got to convince those big money boosters that, hey, listen, it would be better for this program if he doesn't play, because they could have nipped this in the bud a long time ago. Texas Tech.
Yes,
they could have just said, you know what, he's been caught cheating. We are suspending him. Period. We're just suspending him. He can't come back from this. We are kicking him out of school because he violated a rule, and we have that right. But they chose not to do it.
615-737-1025. We will take your reaction to Brendan Soresby for the time being eligible to play despite acknowledging that he had or has a gambling problem and bet on his own team. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation coming up next. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The gang, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, talking Brendan Soresby. A lot of reaction. We'll get to it now. 615-737-1025. Let's start on our phone line with TC in Smyrna. TC, thank you for calling and waiting. Please go ahead.
Hi, guys. I'm going to be real quick. I side with the teams that are looking at possibly not playing Texas Tech for three quick reasons. One is if they decide, I don't think they'll go all the way through it, but if they do, now you have Fox and ESPN will now probably upset because of TV situation. They will probably then talk to the president or the commissioner of the Big 12. Also, they can then petition the NCAA under like extraordinary circumstances. We don't want to play them, and most likely NCAA is going to side with them because they lost. And then thirdly, the NCAA can just say, okay, Texas State, you can play, you can have them, but you're not going to be eligible for the playoffs. You can play them. So there's pressure to be put on them. And I think I like the teams ganging up on them and not playing because I think it will work. And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, TC. Your last idea,
I like the last one.
Your last idea was something that Brian Fisher wrote about for Sports Illustrated. He suggested that the College Football Playoff Committee needs to say that any games Texas Tech plays with Soresby under center will not be considered by the selection committee when evaluating a team for the playoff. Is that a reasonable step?
I think it is. I mean, I think you have to take. This is one of those, like the caller said, this is one of those extraordinary circumstances where, basically there's one person that is opposed to this. Well, it's more than that because it's Soresby's team. But one person, meaning the judge, that thinks that this young man should play. Okay. All right. If you say he can play, then now we're going to determine whether we are going to allow, their season. You could play your season because we've seen it with teams that basically, SMU went through it for a long time. Even when they came back, they were still on suspension.
Yeah. It took them a while to get
exactly.
back up.
There was another football, I think Auburn one year. They were on suspension. They got to play, but
they went undefeated one year and could not
exactly.
be on TV and played an entire 11-game season where they were ineligible for a bowl and could not be on TV.
Exactly. So my thing is we can do the same thing to Texas Tech. Remove them from all, platforms as far as watching them on television. You cannot watch them on cable or any other streaming service you have. If they are playing someone, that game will be blacked out. And then you take further steps to put the pressure on those at Texas Tech to make the right decision.
Rick says, I'm about to come in the YouTube chat and set Willy and his holier than thou attitude straight. Just let me go ahead and tell Willy now. If Pete Rose didn't bet against his team, there was nothing unethical about what he did. Diana Rossini was more unethical. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I'm not really sure I understand it, but
did he hear somebody wrong or not?
Well, we have a philosophical disagreement. There are some people out there, he's not alone, that think if you're betting on your team, it's not a big deal. I think that is way off. That's way off. And I think if you think it through, if you're betting on your team, what about the games that you're not betting? Are you looking at those games differently? It just opens up all of this can of worms. I just don't buy that. And it's a very simple, hard, fast rule. And I would take it a step further to this listener. You may not like the rule. You might believe what you believe. I don't like every rule that's in sports. But you know what? When you choose to play, you play by the rules. And there is no mistaking this rule. And that's really the issue. And that was the issue for Pete Rose. It didn't matter. It didn't say on the sign in front of every clubhouse and locker room, you cannot bet on baseball, period. If you do, you're banned for life. That's what the sign said. It didn't say, well, if you only bet on your team, that's okay. No, it didn't say that.
But still, you can. I really don't understand when, people, well, he bet on his team. Okay, if that's your argument, he still can manipulate that game, even if he's betting on them to win.
Yes.
Because what if the coach make a call that I just want to down the ball and I don't want, but the point spread. No, I'm going to try to throw a touchdown now. You are affecting the game in a way that's beneficial for you. So even if you are betting on your team, you have a way of manipulating what you want to happen.
Nate says, everything goes back to the NCAA. If they originally fairly compensated players years ago, maybe Soresby wouldn't have been tempted to bet in the first place.
Everybody has their blame to this, but it doesn't absolve him from what he did. He knew the rules. This rule is we thought was concrete. You couldn't penetrate this rule. Whatever strongest element out there, that's what this was supposed to be, until Judge Curry comes in and decides he wants to be Superman and break through it all. And that's essentially what he did.
Do you expect Brendan Soresby to play in week 3 for Texas Tech? Or do you think something happens that prevents him from playing?
It all depends on because the NCAA is going to, fight this, so they say. The problem is how it could take a long time. This can be slow moving. So they're going to try to come in and stop this. But my thing is, how quickly is the courts going to want to see this case?
A Texas court scheduled his trial against the NCAA for February 8th, 2027, 2 weeks after the college football national championship game.
That's the strategy. And even if they scheduled it for
October
15th, they would do everything legally to just push it back from his side. So there has to be outrage by everybody to pressure Texas Tech into doing the right thing. To me, that's the only recourse that they have. And so it's how much will Texas Tech just ignore the good of the game, They know there's not a dispute. It's not like the kid saying, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. I promise I didn't make those bets. It's a fact. We know he made the bets. The rule is clear. So either you're abiding by the rules as a school or you're not. Forget about the legal part.
He made a lot of bets too.
How many bets? 9,000?
He made a lot of bets.
The number of money gambled was what? 90,000?
90,000, yeah. And he had friends making bets on his behalf.
And that too
clearly had a problem.
That too should say you're never going to play this sport at this level ever again, because you went so far to involve your friends and had them do your betting and had to send them money that you were getting from NIL, supposedly. So if you're just looking at that, it's like, man, you knew exactly what you were doing was wrong. Yeah, you went and got help and you're going to continue to get help, but you don't get help outside of not playing. Not playing is your punishment. You getting help, that's the remedy.
Well, now he can't play against Abilene Christian.
Yeah.
So
yes, he did.
I also think, in all seriousness, I do think it's a fair thing to throw at Texas Tech. Internally, I hope that there's a voice or two in there saying, is anybody looking out for Brendan Soresby, the person? Because he has a serious addiction. It's obvious. So you can't tell me that he is the one guy that is a miracle cure that has kicked this habit in 35 days or whatever he was in that program. It is an ongoing thing. So is it the best thing for him to be playing while he has just come out of identifying that he's got a problem, admitting he's got a problem? Is anybody talking about that in Texas Tech? Or was like, hey, when can he play? He can really throw. This is good. Get him out there. When's practice?
I wonder how the teammates feel about this. And I'm sure that they're going to try to insulate the other guys as much as they can. But I'm wondering how they feel about it. If you're walking in that locker room and you don't know if your quarterback is on the take, now everybody's going to be questioning high balls. They're going to be questioning everything he does moving forward.
Neil says, are you only betting on your team to win? I don't have an issue with that. If you bet to lose, that's how you can fix the game.
The issue is you have a way of manipulating the game, period. What if you're losing and the coach calls one play and you like, no, I'm calling this play? You have manipulated the game because you're betting on your team to win. It doesn't matter if it's your team or not.
It also, there were some prop bets that he made too, and that is also, let's take the Cleveland Guardians last year. 2 pitchers vanished, including an all-star, Emmanuel Clase, one of the best closers in the game. He didn't fix games. He didn't bet on his team to lose. He made prop bets of whether the first pitch he threw would be a ball or a strike. And so he intentionally threw a ball in some cases. He hadn't pitched since. He's gone. Gone. So there were some prop bets that Soresby did. I don't know the specifics of them, but that's another thing, like you said. He's not betting on them to lose, but if you're betting the quarterback's going to throw for a certain amount of yards or the running back, that's manipulation. That is fixing the game.
615-737-1025. We will get back into Brendan Soresby with Trevor Matich during the 4 o'clock hour. Very curious to hear what Trevor has to say about all of this. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, people are back to belly aching about something involving the Tennessee Titans. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Trevor Matich will join us in roughly 20 minutes. A reminder to take my 10-question Predators off-season survey. Last call, because we will be discussing the results tomorrow on the program. You can find it on my social media feed at Adam Vingan on X. The at 1025 The Game account has also posted it a couple of times, so take it. A lot of you already have. I appreciate that. Some really interesting results, which we will discuss tomorrow. By the way, Jeff Marek will join us at the top of the hour to discuss Predators, NHL, and more. But we're going to start this hour on the Tennessee Titans. They were back out at practice today. And a familiar storyline has popped back up surrounding Cam Ward. His accuracy. That was a big conversation last season. We had that conversation plenty of times last season. Cam Ward completed 59.8% of his passes last season, third worst among qualified quarterbacks in the NFL last season. The only two quarterbacks who had a worse completion percentage among qualified quarterbacks, Caleb Williams at 58.1% and J.J. McCarthy at 57.6%. And as I was reading all of the practice reports from Paul Kuharsky, Easton Freeze, Nick Suss, they're all focusing on Cam Ward. For example, Suss wrote at the Tennessean yesterday, quote, Ward completed 8 of his 17 attempts between team and 7-on-7 periods with a touchdown and an interception. He particularly struggled in the 2 red zone periods at the end of practice, going just 2 for 8 with a pick, although as many of 3 of those incompletions could have been argued to be tactical throwaways. Still, even in 7-on-7 drills and team periods early in practice, Ward missed throws behind receivers. This included passes over the middle and passes to the sideline. Today, according to Suss, without Carnell Tate, the Titans' offense was a little bit up and down again, but caught fire in a red zone period at the end of the day. Ward finished 12 for 22 with 2 touchdowns and an interception between a team period, a 7-on-7 period, 2 third down periods, and 2 red zone periods. So if you're just looking at his charted completion percentage over 2 days of practice, 8 of 17 plus 12 for 22 is 20 for 39, if my quick math is correct, which is a shade above 50%. So the question remains, how concerned should we be about Cam Ward's accuracy through the first few practices of year 2 of his NFL career?
You know me, I don't pay any attention to the completion percentage. That is so shallow and lacks context. If I wanted my quarterback in practice to go 12 for 12, I could call plays and have that happen by just simply calling the shortest, quickest passes, if that's the priority. But that's not the priority. It's to work on stuff. The whole point of practice is the results don't count. It's a process. So I don't care about the numbers of practice. That being said, it's clear that one of the question marks that Cam Ward has is his accuracy. So if he went 19 for 19, you said 39 passes in 2 days?
I believe the total was 20 for 39. Yes.
If he went 37 for 39, my question of his accuracy would be exactly the same. It's like if somebody is evaluating me as a 3-point shooter and they say, hey, I'm not sure if Willy is a good 3-point shooter. His last season, he was inconsistent. He didn't do very well. He needs to improve there. If I have 2 practices in the middle of the summer and I go 9 for 9 from 3, that doesn't answer the question as to whether I've improved. It's a good sign. Or if I have 2 games and I go 0 for 9 or practices over the summer, they say, well, he's still working on it. You can't possibly answer the question with these little things. A couple of practices in the middle of the spring/summer is not going to answer the question one way or the other. So until he improves in the regular season, I don't care about the stats in practice.
I'm not too concerned about, stats and whether he is, unless he's just consistently just bad, then obviously, that's a different story. But people, and I'm saying this not necessarily to, make an excuse for him, because ultimately he's going to have to, do the things that he needs to do to get better. And I have no doubt that that's what he's going to do. But, just because he goes out there and, he's not completing passes, you don't know what the day entailed. And I'm not even talking about in the locker room. I'm saying on the field. What are they trying to accomplish on the field? The throwaways, they probably said, hey, listen, and in practice, you can do this. Like, if you don't see anything there, throw it away. Don't make a dumb mistake in practice. Just throw it away. We can get back in the huddle, discuss it, and kind of move. That's what practice is for. If you don't see it, don't try to, throw it away. Because more than likely, if you try to do it now, you're going to try to do it in a game. That's just going to happen. If you repeatedly do that, you're going to try to do it in a game. So be a smart quarterback. Throw it away. And maybe he did that. Or maybe it was a situation where he had to throw the ball, to score, or had to throw the ball to get the first down. Maybe his receiver dropped the pass. There are a lot of variables that goes on within practice. It's not just, all right, we got these plays, let's go practice, and then let's go back in and watch. There are a lot of variables, especially this time of year. What is the defensive coach trying to get done? All right, we're going to lean more toward this day. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to put him in tough positions or situations and see how he handles that? See if he does throw the ball away? I understand it because I've been in it. You're going to have your good days. You're going to have your bad days. But then you're going to have your days where they're competing back and forth. So just because Mac, we were upset, but just because Mac missed 3 or 4 passes, we're upset. But I'm not looking and saying, even in his early years, oh, man, he's never going to get it. No, because I'm in it and I know what's going on. Maybe it could have been my fault. Maybe I didn't run the right depth on a route. Maybe I didn't take the right angle on a route when I should have. And he was expecting me to do this. So there are a lot of variables that goes on inside of practice. It's not just, again, hike the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball.
Right. It's not nothing, right? If he's struggling every day and everybody's watching and going, he's got accuracy, well, then it's the same question that's always been there. Mm-hmm. And so practicing is important. Don't get me wrong there. But if you're just going to look at 2 days and say, well, he's either improved or he hasn't improved, the 2 days is not enough. It's really the whole offseason, the whole preseason is where those numbers start to mean something. So I know the guys are going to continue to do it. It's intriguing. People want to know, but put it in context is my thing.
He's learning a new offense. He's throwing to new receivers. They're learning a new offense, majority of them. The only person that isn't learning a new offense is Wan'Dale Robinson. But everybody else, they're learning, even if they are veteran guys, they all are learning a new offense. So with a new offense, we all got to know angles too to this new offense. Why do you want me to run it like this, coach? Okay, you want me to run it like this? I run it. I used to run it like this. Quarterback throws behind. No, we want you to run it like this in this offense. All right, go back to next time. You run it exactly how he wants it to be run, and then you complete it. So there are a lot of other things that goes on. Again, I'm not saying that he doesn't need to, take what he's doing and learn on it and move forward. But I'm not going to sit here and be worried, during OTAs with no pads on and him learning a new offense, people. He just got the playbook 2 months ago.
So devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
When would it be appropriate to be concerned about Cam Ward's accuracy?
There's already concern.
Yeah.
Don't you already have concern?
There is concern. So let me rephrase.
Mm-hmm.
As the both of you said, it's, I think, 4 practices now, at least 4 open practices, so people can report on what happens at the practices. I believe this was the 4th open practice. So through 4 open practices, you don't believe there's reason to be more concerned. You have the baseline concern, but nothing that's happened so far gives you more concern.
No,
not
when
whatsoever.
when would you have more concern?
For me, once they get into camp, once they put the pads on, because I'm basing it on my experience, that's when gets grueling. That's when the monotony sets in, and that's when people are tired and I don't want to be out here. It's too hot, this and that, and that. And you have to mentally focus yourself on the task at hand. If then we start seeing, we don't see that development or that improvement, I think that's when, because now everybody's back. He got his receivers, he got his O-line, everybody's back. So there's no excuses. And now you have months inside of this offense. So if you get into practice and we start going, and all of a sudden it's looking like you still have some of these same problems that you were dealing with last year, just like Will Levis, it's like, okay, we may have we need to start, our antennas needs to go up. I'm not saying this is, what is the worst one? DEFCON what? One. This is not DEFCON 1. No, we're probably on 4 out of 5, but we do need to start paying attention.
Paul Kaharski, in his review of practice today, wrote, quote, "I think it's unreasonable to expect the best of him in the spring of his second year, given he wasn't coming into the league as a great quarterback, given a shaky first year by him with a lousy surrounding cast and coaching. There needs to be a significant jump this season. And what we've been allowed to see, there aren't signs of it yet, but that doesn't mean it can't show up."
The only thing I disagree with is the coming in as a great quarterback. They drafted you number 1. So they thought you had or have the potential of being a great quarterback. So that's probably the only thing that I disagree with what Paul's saying. I mean, because you drafted him number 1. So why wouldn't you think he's going to be great? And if you're looking at his stats and everything else, there's a reason why and if you watched him play, there's a reason why you drafted him number 1.
Now, here's something else. One thing that especially, Willy, you have brought up when discussing Cam Ward is the velocity of his passes, right?
Yes.
Wan'Dale Robinson was on Kay Adams' show, and he said this, quote, about Cam Ward, quote, "You better have your head around because the ball's coming out fast. I haven't really had a quarterback that as soon as you put your foot in the ground, the ball's out. As soon as you turn your head, it's already there." I am wondering with a more seasoned cast of receivers, does that problem crop up again? The speed with which Cam Ward throws the ball, because that's something you have pointed out throughout Ward's early NFL career in what could be a part of his accuracy issues.
If it doesn't change, that's not on Cam Ward, meaning the ball come out. He does. Wan'Dale Robinson is right. When I hit my foot, we are taught, get your head around because the ball's coming. If the ball hits you in the head, that's your fault. That's what I was taught. If the ball hits you in the head, that's your fault because he's expecting you. Why do you think Peyton Manning could complete the passes that he completed or Tom Brady? Because they anticipated it. It was boom. And you better be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. That's what I was taught. That's why when you say, well, the ball gets off fast and hit him. No, it's the receiver's fault. Get your damn head around. That's what we're taught. So in his second year, everybody knows that now. Everybody, Alec, DK, Gunner, Ridley. The only person that may still be getting used to it is Wan'Dale Robinson and Carnell Tate. But everybody else, you've seen. That's like me saying in the first year, Mac, man, he throws the ball, bam, it's on you. And then the next year, I'm still complaining about the same thing. No, that's on you, dummy. Get your head around. So I don't blame that. Cam, keep doing what you're doing. Hit that back foot and let that ball release. Because you know what? It's a matter of inches in this game. And if you don't do it, that's the difference between a completion and an interception or a ball knocked down.
I agree 100%. My only distinction would be on the heater question.
Mm-hmm.
Can he develop the ability to take it down just a notch when he can? There are times where you got to zip it in there or else you got no chance to hit the window. And the timing should be there no matter what. Mm-hmm. But there's probably some throws that could he deliver it with a little more touch on it? I think the answer is yes, to help your receiver not have to catch this 95-mile-an-hour fastball or the equivalent of it. And Adam, you brought up a great question. I would love to see how the different passers in the league that we watch every Sunday vary in terms of velocity. Nobody ever does it. It's weird to me. Nobody ever says, in this day and age especially, hey, that was a 75-mile-an-hour heater that he just threw, because it's irrelevant in some form. It's just for reference. It's curiosity, especially for Cam, where you ask yourself, does he have to throw that ball quite that hard to have the best chance to complete that pass?
He could still have the quick release. That has to be there.
Yes.
But he, like them, he's going to have to learn who his wide receivers are and their body movement. And then they're going to have to know and learn, like, Cam likes the ball to come out quickly. And more than that, it's Dabo, because Dabo has a system. And it's boom, 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 boom. It's not boom, boom. No, it's boom, boom, boom. So if you ain't getting your head around, I can't throw it to you, so I'm going to the next guy. If you want to catch passes in this league, you better get your head around, and you better be ready. But I understand what you're saying, Willie, when the anticipation can still be there, but if you can not throw it as hard, like as fast, but the anticipation, because at the end, what was getting Peyton Manning through? His anticipation of knowing where he was going to release the ball and where the ball, and a lot of times those guys would turn around, the ball would be right on him because he knew he didn't have a heater anymore.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Cam Ward and his accuracy. It's a hot topic once again. Coming up next, Trevor Matich will join the program. We'll ask him about Cam Ward, as well as Brendan Soresby. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick cleaning up the break room because during the break he was shaking up a protein shake. Didn't realize the cap was off. And it spilled all over the kitchen. So he'll be back in just a moment. But in the meantime, let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Trevor Matich, ESPN, NFL, and college football analyst. Hello, Trevor. How are you?
Adam, I'm great. How about you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining us as always. So we're going to ask you about Brendan Soresby here in a minute. But first, I want to ask you about Cam Ward because we were discussing Ward before you came on the air. So Cam Ward's accuracy is a hot topic once again here in Nashville. He completed fewer than 60% of his passes last season, and the numbers being tracked by reporters at practice are not incredibly inspiring. How correctable is that for Ward, and how confident are you that Ward can correct it?
I'm confident, Adam, that he can correct it. And part of it is that I'm not certain how much of the inaccuracy, the apparent inaccuracy, is Ward's fault. I mean, when you look at OTAs, there's a couple of things that happen. One is that he throws to a spot. The receiver needs to show the coach that he can get to that spot on time. And if the receiver isn't there, it could be an inaccurate throw that looks like it was inaccurate because of the receiver and where he was supposed to be, but he wasn't. Another thing about Cam is that it's an emphasis this offseason for him to work on his footwork, be more consistent with his footwork, because that will help inherent accuracy. And so is he in that process? Are there times when that feels a little awkward to him? Does that lead to some throws that don't get where they need to be on time? These are things you work on during OTAs that can make it look like the inaccuracy is a problem when really you're working on things that will ultimately fix the inaccuracy instead of trying to be as accurate as possible for the media during OTAs. One other thing to think about is that there are times when a quarterback in OTAs or even training camp will make a throw to a receiver who's covered and it gets intercepted. And everybody is all mad at the quarterback for making such a terrible throw when the quarterback might have been told, hey, throw it to that receiver, even if he's covered, especially if he's covered, because we, the coaches, want to see if he is able to, that receiver is able to go up and win that ball. Well, people watching it think the quarterback messed up when he was actually told to make that throw. So there are a lot of things during OTAs and training camp that aren't really the quarterback's fault or that are the quarterback's fault, but he's working on new ways of getting the ball out on time, and he's just not there yet.
Trevor, I can't remember the last time the sports commentariat was as unified as it is regarding Brendan Soresby being eligible to play despite his history of gambling, including on his own team. How do you think this ultimately plays out?
I think ultimately the NCAA will absolutely take it to trial. Right now there's a trial date in February, and they'll go there, even though this is the last season of eligibility for Soresby. So it almost seems like they could just drop it because it doesn't matter to Soresby. But I think the NCAA will take it through so they can get a positive ruling and set a precedent, which right now seems to be set in the worst possible way with this preliminary injunction that seems to be allowing him to play this season. This is as clear-cut a red line as the NCAA could possibly hope for to go to court to give them the legal precedent to keep enforcing these rules and other rules. So I don't think they'll drop it there. Also, when we look at kind of the sequence of events that's happening, Willie, you made a great point about an hour ago when you said that the NCAA is really, they did what they were supposed to do. They investigated it. They suspended Soresby for the season, and then the preliminary injunction by the court overturned that. And that's what everybody's upset about, is this preliminary injunction. Now, the NCAA has appealed that to a circuit court of appeals that includes 4 Texas Tech Law School graduates among their judges. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see what happens there. But if nothing changes with this temporary injunction, it looks like he'll play. But if he does, it sets up Texas Tech to be the absolute evil pariah of all of college football. Even though, and guys, let me just say this, and then I'll pause, because I know there's a lot of directions you might want to take this. Willie, you said that the NCAA did what they had to do, and they don't deserve criticism here, and you are right. But Texas Tech is doing what is legally correct. Texas Tech is between two places. There's the moral side, because Soresby admitted to all these gambling violations. Then there's the legal side, because now it's playing out in court. And Texas Tech has every right to say, okay, we don't want to get in the middle of it. We're going to do what the judge says. And so right now, even though Texas Tech is getting just hammered, right now they're doing what the judge tells them to do.
Now, with that being said, we also talked about things other teams could do as far as not wanting to participate in, any, athletic contest with Texas Tech as a whole. Is that even possible for them to do so late in the game?
I think late in the game, Derek, is not really feasible. If they've already scheduled Texas Tech, I don't see any way for them to drop them from the schedule. Part of the problem is, like, let's say, for example, the Big 12 right now is reported to be discussing whether or not they should not play Texas Tech in conference games. Well, let's say then that from a legal standpoint, every team in the Big 12 refuses to take the field against Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech then wins by forfeit. But guess what? There are TV contracts, and there are stadium concession contracts, and there's all kinds of other contracts that will then likely be in violation because of the Big 12's decision to do that, unless those contracts have some sort of a provision to allow them to do it. Plus, like let's say Arizona, who is one of the teams that is projected to be in contention for the title. Let's say they say, okay, we're not going to play Texas Tech. Well, guess what? That is 1/12 of their TV revenue that they're just saying we're not going to get, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're asking teams to violate contracts potentially and to lose a ton of money to make a point. And maybe that point is strong enough for them to make. But I think right now they're going to make the point verbally, and then if they're contracted to play Texas Tech, they're going to do it.
Now, we've seen what the judge decided to do. Obviously, the NCAA will counter that and try to get this, rule reinstated for them in order for him to not play. It seemed like the last case scenario, and we talked about this too, that the committee says, you know what, since there's nothing we can do at this point, meaning the NCAA, because again, it's a rule that you've broken. You are not allowed to participate in the college football playoffs or in the conference championship game.
Yeah, they could. And the bylaws of the Big 12 allow for what they describe as a supermajority of disinterested, personnel, athletic directors, I think, to impose all kinds of sanctions that they think might be appropriate. But let's take each one of those individually. Let's say the Big 12 doesn't allow Texas Tech to participate in the Big 12 championship game. Well, that would hurt Texas Tech, but it wouldn't hurt the Big 12 just because you'd have some other team take their place. But look at the playoff situation. Last year, with a 12-team playoff, the only team from the Big 12 to make it was Texas Tech. And if you put multiple teams in, you make multiples of money as a conference. So let's say that Texas Tech is prohibited by the Big 12 of playing in the postseason, so they can't be in the playoff. And let's say, call it BYU. BYU is another team in the Big 12 that is forecast to be a contender for the conference championship. But they have a couple of tough games. They could lose at home to Notre Dame and on the road to Utah and still win the conference. And those two losses might knock them out of the playoff and therefore the entire Big 12 out of the playoff. And it would still cost them, the conference, millions of dollars. So right now, I think there's a big moral outrage here. But
doesn't
the
Big 12
application of punishment won't match it?
But
right?
doesn't the Big 12 isn't it an automatic bid? If you win the Big 12, you're automatically in. So they could punish Texas Tech and say, hey, listen, yeah, you may have had the best record, but you're not competing or participating in the Big 12 championship, which means by default, the other team wins, which means they would go.
Let's check that real quick, because they were talking about getting rid of that. Let's check and make sure.
The automatic, we're talking about an automatic bid for the winner of the Big 12.
Yeah.
So if I think what Derek is saying is if you don't let them play, if you're saying you can't play for the Big 12 championship, the next two teams will play, and the winner is the automatic bid.
Right. The question is that automatic bid still there? Now that you mention it, my brain is, no, you're right, Derek. There it is an automatic bid. Yeah. So they would make it there. But the thing is, if Texas Tech, who, in last year they finished the regular season number 4, if there would have been, 2 different teams that could have made it, then it's just there's money that's out there.
Right.
Exactly.
The second team would mean a lot of money, right?
There's money that you're not getting in. But here's the thing, though. What these teams, what these programs, Georgia and Nebraska, who don't play Texas Tech in football this year, have already said, we're not going to play Texas Tech. Well, okay, that's interesting, but it's just something to say right now. But a lot of teams and a lot of conferences are talking about having the same kind of a thing. Well, what they are upset about is the moral aspect of it, because the moral aspect is that this is not just the NCAA saying that their investigation showed that Brendan Soresby is guilty of all kinds of gambling violations, but Soresby denies it, and so it's in court. It's not like that, because Soresby has admitted to every one of these things, and they're in court now, and he prevailed on the preliminary injunction to say not that he should be able to gamble in sports, college football, but that this is not a gambling issue. It's a mental health issue and an addiction issue, and federal law should protect him from being punished for working on his mental health issue, kind of a thing. And that's what this preliminary injunction judge bought. That was the argument that he bought. So I think what other teams are saying is that, okay, the judge said that. We'll see what the judge says in the trial in February, or the jury. But Texas Tech, he did admit to gambling on his own team in Indiana dozens of times on the way to $90,000 of bets. And you have the ability to suspend him. And they're requiring that Texas Tech follow that moral code, even though the law says, hey, wait a minute, let's let this play out in court. The problem for Texas Tech now is that they've boxed themselves into a corner. Texas Tech said, okay, injunction judge, we will go by the law. We will allow Soresby to play until we're told by the courts otherwise. And if Texas Tech then says, oh no, clutch my pearls, Nebraska, Georgia, and others won't schedule us. We have lots of heat. We're going to change our mind because of that heat. That would almost be worse for Texas Tech at this point.
Trevor, do you think anybody, and this is, again, I think I know the answer before I ask it, but do you think there's anybody internally at Texas Tech, from the mental health side of things maybe, that suggests to the coach, look, he's won the injunction, we've won, he's allowed to play, even though here's all the noise. But what's best for this kid? He's got a gambling addiction. Would it be right to throw him right back into the same thing? Like, what would any therapist say? Is anybody listening to those people?
If anybody at Texas Tech is saying that, Willie, I don't think anybody is listening to it. I think this is purely
Isn't that part of a coach's job, like to consider that kind of thing?
Yeah, but here's what the coach is thinking. He went to rehab. Rehab discharged him with a positive report, and the court said he can play. As the coach, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to disagree with both of those things, right? And so it favors the coach to take that as his moral compass in this situation, in this moment. And it also favors the coach to let the star quarterback play. So right now, the coach is in a perfect situation. You've also got, when you talk about Texas Tech, I don't know this, but I wouldn't be surprised if the big money people were saying, hey, if the court says yes, I don't care what Nebraska and Georgia say, he's playing. I'm paying all your salaries. I'm paying all this NIL. And if the court says yes, I do not want you to find some other extraneous reason to say no. And I don't know that that's happening, but if it is, that's a very powerful argument to not want to get on the wrong side of it if you're Texas Tech.
Do you think that if Texas Tech and these lawyers had presented a 7-game suspension or even a 6-game suspension, that maybe there would be a little less fire with that? But the 2-game suspension is almost like, why even bother with that? I think
Right.
that has contributed. How do you feel about that? If it was like a real legit punishment, half a season kind of thing.
Yeah, there's only one legit punishment, and that is lose all future college eligibility, 100%, end of story. That is as bright a red line as there is. And if this is allowed to stand when the court actually, has its day in court in February, then the NCAA will be completely obliterated as a regulatory body. And if the courts say, yeah, you can attach this to a mental health federal law excuse or rationale, if I don't want to use the word excuse, then every single violation that you can possibly think of, a smart lawyer could tie to federal law governing mental health and or addiction. So right now, the NCAA is at a turning point, a crossroads, where they're largely just an entity that runs Olympic sports tournaments now anyway, certainly as it relates to football. But if they can't get this overturned in court in February, then they will lose all of any credibility that they may have ever had. This is a big deal.
Okay. I'm going to make an 80s reference here, but I feel like this movie is going to transcend time. All I could think about when the judge gave his reasoning, I could only picture the attorneys for Soresby walking out of the case. It was like Ferris Bueller at the beginning of the movie when he does his whole act to his parents pretending he's sick, and the parents shut the door.
They bought it.
Exactly. They
Well,
bought it.
Isn't that pretty much every court
Yes.
procedure that ever's been?
Right.
Yeah. Because one thing that I'm not a lawyer, but I've been told by lawyers that in court, the truth is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is what you can prove.
Trevor Matich has been our guest on DMase Vinganadonic. He joins us every Tuesday. Trevor, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, guys.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Trevor had to say. Coming up next, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, if you're out there and you're looking at your monthly budget and you're saying, you know what, I'm spinning my wheels here. I got a credit card and the interest rate's really high and it's hard to do anything more than make the minimum payments and I'm not chewing down that debt. Here is the solution that Loan Pronto has been helping a lot of people with. And it's the rapid equity loan. A lot of homeowners don't realize you can use the equity in your home to access thousands of dollars in cash. With Loan Pronto's rapid equity loan, you can pay off your credit card, your existing HELOC, your car loan, that big debt that's got the high interest rate. And one client got $100,000 approved, just for an example, and saved over $1,500 a month doing so. And you pay off that credit card bill. With Loan Pronto, you can do it all from your phone as well. Zero out of pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal. Rates are at near 3-year lows. So call and find out how much money you can get and how much money you can then in turn save in about 60 seconds. Here's how you do it. Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. 2,800 5-star Google reviews. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
DMase, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Jeff Marek, NHL commentator, will join us at the top of the hour. We'll get Jeff's thoughts on the Predators' hiring of Chris McFarland, Rob Blake, and more coming up at the top of the hour. But during our conversation about Brendan Soresby, we received this text from Kevin in Nashville. He said, there are multiple players in the NFL that have gambled. Do we question Calvin Ridley? He gambled on games. Does he let up or drop some balls when necessary? It has to be asked. If you recall, Calvin Ridley was suspended for an entire season after it was discovered that he gambled on NBA and NFL games, including the Atlanta Falcons. He was a member of the Falcons at the time. So is Kevin questions fair?
Yeah, it's fair. If you want to question an individual because, you know, they have a history of gambling, you have every right to. Every right to. The NFL came down on him hard. They suspended him for a year. And if you feel as a person that enjoy and watches sports and may even bet on sports, if you feel a little about Calvin Ridley, you have a right to. I would too if I was a betting man like that. And I'm betting on a Titans game. I'm like, nah, I may not want to bet on that one.
I don't know what the follow-up rules are. Like if you've been found guilty, I would think that if you were to get punished again, it would be very severe.
Ban.
And I can remember, like, this is it sounds crazy to think about now, but back in the day, if you tested positive for marijuana, like you knew when the test was going to be, you just had to be clean for that test, and you wouldn't be tested the rest of the year for marijuana. So, but if you did trigger it, then all of a sudden you're going to be tested a bunch
over and
more
over,
to prove that you can stay clean or whatever. Back when pot
what
was
the kid
different.
from Cleveland Browns.
Exactly. Greatest example.
He couldn't
Gordon.
stop. Yeah, Josh Gordon. He couldn't stop.
Talented player, but
suspended him.
He couldn't get it right because he kept falling into the same trap. I would guess there's something like that with gambling, but I would say Nicholas Petit-Frere and Calvin Ridley, those guys paid significant penalties for far less of what Soresby has been proven to do, right? They didn't cut. There was just one bet for or where they placed the bet.
Nicholas is where he placed the bet.
Petit-Frere. I can't remember all the particulars for Ridley, but it wasn't like, well, he's been gambling for years on the league. It was just kind of a one-shot deal, wasn't it? What do we have on that, Adam?
So Nicholas Petit-Frere suspended 6 games by the NFL in 2023 for violating the NFL's gambling policy.
He gambled.
He was suspended for betting on non-NFL sports at the club facility.
Right.
So you can bet, but you can't bet. Like you can bet on basketball, but you can't bet while you're on NFL ground.
Now, what about Ridley, who he served a full year suspension, right?
Yes, he missed the entire, was it the 2021 season for Ridley? Give me a moment. I'll look up the details.
But I guess.
But what you're saying is they paid
a very big price, and there's no guarantee that somebody doesn't trip up again if you really have a problem. But a lot of these guys, I think, were adapting to the new regime in sports where gambling is much more acceptable socially, where we feel there used to be a time it was taboo to talk about it. It was all behind the scenes and you had to call your bookie and all that stuff. Now it's all out front. It's on your phone. And so there was, needless to say, some guys had to adjust to that.
So Ridley, this is according to ESPN. Ridley was suspended for at least the 2022 season on March 7th last year. This is from a few years ago. After an investigation found that he bet on NFL games over a 5-day stretch in November 2021 while he was away from the Atlanta Falcons. A league source told ESPN's Adam Schefter last March that the league determined Ridley placed parlay bets that included the Falcons to win via his mobile device out of state.
And he wasn't with the team.
He was away from the team.
Right. So, I mean,
that's when he was dealing with the mental
health
issues.
Right. He had stepped away from the team. And so he cost him a lot of money. It cost him a lot of time. It cost him a year of his career. there was a penalty. I think that's all we're saying. Nobody wishes that Soresby needs to be thrown out of football forever, but there's got to be repercussions for, even to a greater degree, breaking the rules. Now, here's how much it's changed. I saw this last night. Somebody reminded me of this on Twitter. I remember this. Good friend of yours, Derek, a former coach of yours, Rick Neuheisel, who we always love talking to on the show. Used to be wide receivers coach for the Ravens, but he was a great college coach for a while at Colorado and then his alma mater, UCLA. He lost his job because he was participating in a NCAA basketball tournament pool. I mean, he just, they found that he put some money into a pool like we all did back then, but they found out about it. He got fired for that.
And look how far we've come. But even with Calvin Ridley, at the time he was going through his mental health issues. That's why he stepped away from Atlanta. They could have said, well, he was dealing with mental health, so that's why he played. You can't. No, it was a hard line rule. You paid the penalty.
One texter says, if you watch Ridley, he's definitely taking his unders.
Stop it, people.
You shouldn't laugh, but
stop it, people.
Okay. No.
One texter says, Pete Rose got a lifetime ban for doing less.
No.
I don't know if he did less.
He did less. No.
I mean, if you watch the documentaries and read the books, they had a lot of stuff on him. They did not want to suspend Pete Rose for life. There was a lot of bargaining behind the scenes. Look, Pete, just admit that you did some stuff and we'll work something out here. And you don't have to accept the lifetime. He was bullish and said, no, I didn't do any of this. And they're like, we got this piece of paper. We got a lot of evidence. There's like a binder of stuff.
They've been watching you, Pete. Oh, man.
But that was the rule. That's the point of this, is you knew what the rule was. Pete Rose knew what the rule was.
So you can't know what the rule is and expect to, especially to the degree that he did it, Soresby, and expect to just, blame it on, and everybody, there are a lot of people out here that are going through things mentally. But even in that, there are things you can't do, and things especially when you're talking about your job. There are things you can do, and there are things you can't do. And one of these things that you can't do is gamble, and there's no ambiguity about it.
Quickly, Scott in Waverly says, as an addict in recovery, I have to feel like if he gets treatment and dedicates to a recovery program, he should get a chance. If somebody in the league has a drug addiction, they get help and come back. Gambling addiction shouldn't be any different. No double standard.
Well, the problem here is that, one, it's a fast, hard rule. Like and you're talking about the integrity of the game. It's not like, he's addicted to drugs or alcohol. That's something totally different, because that doesn't compromise, the integrity of the game. It compromises the person, and you want that person to get help. And people tend to sympathize and want to be there with you when you're talking about that. But when it's betting, it's like, we'll help you, but in helping you, we shouldn't have to allow you back on the field. We can help you. Like I said yesterday, we can help you. You could be around the team. You can come to practice. But on Saturdays or any other day, we are supposed to play. You cannot play.
615-737-1025. By the way, a massive storm is about to roll through here. You might notice how dark it is outside. If you're driving, please be careful. Slow down. Stop if you have to. We'll be here with you. Be safe. But just keep an eye on it, because it is getting ominous outside.
We'll guide you home.
We'll get you home. Coming up next, Jeff Marek will join us, host of The Sheet on Daily Faceoff. We'll talk to him about the Predators' new look front office and more coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Quickly, a weather update from Maddie on our text line. Quote, I just drove through that storm. It was like 20 straight minutes of being urinated on by a Titan-sized racehorse. Descriptive.
That's quite the visual.
Very descriptive.
Be safe out there. Let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in our friend, Jeff Marek, host of The Sheet every weekday on Daily Faceoff. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well. What's going on in Nashville?
Well, we'll get to golf ball stacking in a moment because, as you noted, the Predators asked NHL draft prospects to stack golf balls to see how long they can focus on a task before quitting.
Right.
And I did watch a video of someone trying to stack golf balls, and I got aggravated watching somebody try to do it. So I would have failed this.
You know what? So Martin Biron, former NHL netminder, who now works with the Buffalo Sabres broadcast crew. So he does a really great show called Sabres Live with Brian Duff and Marty Biron. Marty did it on his first try.
Impressive.
I retweeted it. It's impressive. So you got to look. You got to measure off sort of like dimple by dimple, and he did it on his first try. Now, the prospect that told me about this said that he couldn't do it, and he took it. Like, he took golf balls like back to his hotel room to keep trying. And of course, like the thinking behind it, like I really like some of the stuff at the combine is goofy, but I actually like this one from Nashville because it helps you pay attention to how long kids can focus on a task before they just get frustrated and give up. So I really like this one. I really did like it. It's one of the more creative ones that I've seen.
So, Jeff, last Tuesday, the Predators finally hired a new general manager, prying Chris McFarland from the Colorado Avalanche. The Predators also added Rob Blake to the front office.
Yeah.
So what do you like about the McFarland-Blake pairing, and what should Predators fans expect from this new look front office?
Okay, so, well, I mean, they got Chris McFarland, as we all predicted, as was obvious for months ago, as we all said. So it's a surprise pick, and I'll tell you what, so there have been, in my estimation, the top two teams when it comes to efficiency are the Carolina Hurricanes and the Colorado Avalanche. And what I mean by that is, these are two teams that make really safe, smart bets, and they make a bunch of them. And it doesn't always hit, but when it does, it really helps you fill out your lineup. Like with Colorado, and I should mention too, this isn't just Chris McFarland. I'm going to give you a long answer here, so settle in, guys. So with the Avalanche, there was certainly everything overseen by Chris McFarland. He was really excellent, really smart general manager. But there were a couple of people on his analytics staff, Eric Parnas, who was director of analytics, who since got a promotion, and Dawson Springings, who was the associate director of analytics and lead data scientist. And what they would do with Colorado, and this is how you keep your competitive window open and you don't salary cap yourself out. Carolina does this mainly with Tyler Dello as the assistant general manager. So what they do is they find areas and they find players that other teams have given up on, but this team recognizes are quality and they are value contracts. Like if you look at what the Colorado Avalanche have done, whether it's someone like they bring in like Sam Malinsky, for example, the defenseman, by bringing him in, that allows them to trade Samuel Girard, and all of a sudden you have a cheaper replacement on your line, on your roster, and you have the ability to use cap space as a commodity to go to get something else. Chris McFarland, this is one thing that I want to underscore here. Chris McFarland understands the use of cap space as a commodity. And I think this is one area where a lot of general managers in the NHL fall down. They don't look at space as a cap space as a commodity the same way that Colorado does or a team like Carolina does. So long-winded answer, I think what Chris McFarland is going through right now is he's going to go through the entire organization, go through the team, and find out where the areas of inefficiency and find the challenges of finding players that are that have efficient contracts to replace players that have ineffective contracts. That's what I see with Chris McFarland and Rob Blake, who I know, by the end with the Kings, it wasn't the glory days as general manager, but I've always looked at Rob Blake as a big picture guy. If you talk to him when he played or talk to him as a general manager, he was always able to present big picture. So you have a sort of hand-glove relationship of the big picture of Rob Blake and the day-to-day in the trenches of Chris McFarland weeding everything out. It's going to take a while here until you really see the Chris McFarland effect taking effect. But make no mistake about it, he will go painstakingly through this roster and find inefficiencies.
Jeff, Chris McFarland acknowledged last week that the age of the Predators' top players is something that he will factor into his offseason plans. The Predators, as we have discussed on this show many times, are in major need of players in their early to mid-20s to bridge the gap between the 30-somethings and the up-and-comers who are just getting their feet wet in the league. Who are some players in need of a change of scenery who could be available via trade this offseason? We discussed Anaheim's Mason McTavish last week, but who else are you keeping your eye on this summer?
Well, first of all, do you want to play with offer sheets?
I'm not opposed to an offer sheet.
Like that's one of the first questions. I was talking to someone today who works with an NHL team, who said, for the first time in a long time, our owner asked us about offer sheets. And you look at the weak free agent class this offseason, if you're going to move your program ahead at all, it's going to be either trades or offer sheets. I think it's kind of going to be a little bit wild this offseason. I know we talked about it last summer, saying, the summer of trades and offer sheets. Well, it didn't exactly happen. But now, with more space available and, teams not being able to complement their roster with free agency, I see it being trades and offer sheets. You know what? I look at players like right away. If I want to sort of speed this thing up a little bit and not do a full rebuild, I'm looking at the St. Louis Blues. I really am. Like St. Louis right now, the new general manager, Alexander Steen, comes in. He's been sitting at the feet of Doug Armstrong for a number of years. I think that, he's been, waiting patiently, planning what he needs to do with this team. I think that's a team that's going to get younger. This is a team that, made the playoffs last season, flamed out against the Winnipeg Jets, but almost beat them. And it seemed like that was the end of the road for this group. So I would wonder about players like Jordan Kyrou, who are very much was available last year, although the price was high. I look at someone like Robert Thomas and Andy Strickland has reported that he's not available. But not that I'm disputing the reporting, I've just heard otherwise. I would look at St. Louis and say to myself, okay, maybe there's something there. And if you're an NHL team, do what Nashville wants to do, and you're not thinking about an offer sheet for someone like Maverick Bourque against the Dallas Stars, then you're not doing your job. Dallas is right up against it, especially if they re-sign Jason Robertson, which doesn't look likely, but if somehow they do, I wonder if someone like Maverick Bourque could be right for an offer sheet here.
Now, Jeff, mentioning guys that, the Predators can potentially offer sheets too. Dylan Larkin, he's requested to be traded. Now he's only put out there, I want to be traded to 3 teams. How can you want to be traded but limited to 3 teams? And we all know why. But should McFarland, seeing where the Predators are, knowing where he came from, should they, or do you expect him to make an offer on Dylan Larkin?
I don't know about, it's a great question. I don't know about making an offer, but you're not doing your job if you're not checking in on what it would take. Even if for no other reason, and just to get a sense of where the marketplace is at. Like there's a lot of data points in every single conversation you have. And if Chris McFarland calls up Steve Yzerman to talk about.
Did we lose Jeff? We'll get Jeff back on in just a moment.
We blame it on the storm.
We'll blame it on the storm.
We'll take the rap on that.
On the rain.
Sound just like him.
Yes.
But the question is, who was that?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it wasn't Millie and it wasn't Vanilli, as we found out. That was kind of shocking.
We'll get Jeff back. We'll get Jeff back in just a moment. But
good stuff, though. Like that. It's interesting when you start listing them. there are a lot of bold options out there that sound like, well, if you want to be bold, it's not like there's nothing out there that you could do. There are some things. Now, whether that's the smartest move or whether Chris McFarland thinks it's the smartest move, that remains to be seen.
And we should ask Jeff, as we get him back on the line, I'm sure he has some really interesting thoughts on this sort of player empowerment wave that seems to be sweeping
and that's exactly
the NHL. So let's get Jeff Marek back on the line.
Hey,
Jeff,
Chris.
we're sorry about that. There's
problem.
there's a gigantic storm rolling through Nashville. We'll just blame it on that. But please continue on your point
ambiance
on
behind your voice here, Jeff, to the listeners here.
I just thought it was the Nashville BS detector. Once they said detector, I was just filling it up too much. They kicked me off the show. No, look, like I don't think you're doing your job if you don't check in. I think the best general managers are checking in and are part of every single conversation. Even if you don't think you're going to get the player, at least you get a sense of where the marketplace is at. And I think the responsible thing to do as a general manager when someone like Dylan Larkin becomes available, you just check in. Just to have the conversation. What are you looking for? What would you want from our roster? What's your marketplace for Dylan Larkin? That way you create some more data points in the organization to know this is what Detroit is thinking. This is what Detroit needs. And maybe a conversation about Dylan Larkin, even if that doesn't go anywhere, it may spur a discussion about someone else somewhere down the line. And like a year ago, we find out, oh, this discussion began when Chris checked in with Steve on Larkin, and then that turned into something else. That happens all the time. So never a bad idea to check in when someone becomes available.
Jeff Marek is with us. So Jeff, let's take the Predators out of this equation for the question. But when a player the caliber of Larkin is trying to exercise his leverage here and force a move, do you think it's reasonable for him to only limit the list to 3 teams, or do you think he's going to have to expand if he's going to get what he wants?
So his no move clause was negotiated in good faith, right? So all that no move clauses are really is because players waive them all the time. When you're not wanted on a team or you want to leave a team, you're going to go, right? Like very seldom does a team, keep a guy that doesn't want to be there for a long time or vice versa. So I always approach it from these things were negotiated in good faith. If the player wants to go somewhere, you need to find the leverage point. And right now, the leverage point for Dylan Larkin is Steve Yzerman has to improve this team. And if Dylan Larkin doesn't want to be part of it, he needs to move Dylan Larkin as quickly as possible and get the best possible return. Like Detroit has seen Buffalo jump over them, has seen Montreal jump over them, has seen Ottawa jump over them. And it's been year after year after year of that building sitting there. Like, we don't even call it a new building anymore. It's just a 10-year-old building that hasn't had any playoff games. So Larkin and his representation at CAA know all this, and they've created a leverage point whereby he feels he can get himself into a position where he goes to one of his preferred destinations. So I completely understand it, because if the shoe were on the other foot, the teams would behave the exact same way. That's why when someone negotiates a contract in good faith, asks out and only limits it to 3 teams, like Yzerman doesn't have to trade him. That's true. But on the other hand, you got to get the team in the playoffs, man. And they cannot squander another season. That's the pressure point that Dylan Larkin is exploiting right now.
Okay, you're a good neutral person to ask this question, Jeff, because for years we've watched Michael McCarron emerge from first-round pick, not in the league. Predators pick him up for a minor league flyer. And for a while, I think there was a lot of, why did they even put this guy in the lineup? He doesn't score, all this. What does he do? To where he kind of won the fans over, but it was still like, they should trade him. And I think people were honestly surprised that the Predators got a second-round pick. Now you see the contract he signs today. What is your thought on the value of Michael McCarron, especially with the Wild signing him to a 6-year deal?
So Mark Bergevin always has a great quote, and he says, there are players that get you there and players that get you through. And over 82, and I guess 84 starting next year, games, you might not recognize the value of Michael McCarron. Like, he's always going to be the sheriff on your team. He's always going to protect your younger players. We know that role during the regular season. The thing is, when it gets to the playoffs and every hit is for keeps, and you need players that can bang and crash and hit and do all those things to soften up another team in a 7-game series, that's where you really see the value of Michael McCarron, right? And especially if you put him with the Foligno brothers, all of a sudden that line becomes just an absolute wrecking ball for the Minnesota Wild. Like, there are just some players that just fit better on some teams than others. And it's not a knock on the team that he comes from. It's just, it wasn't the best of all possible fits at this time, right? Like, that's all. Like, UC Saros is great on the Nashville Predators. Roman Josi is fantastic on the Nashville Predators. Like, there are a lot of players that we've seen throughout the years that fit on Nashville that might not fit somewhere else. And for Michael McCarron, he got to Minnesota. Nashville got a 2nd-round pick. That was an outstanding value for Michael McCarron, and he fits great on Minnesota, and he's found a home. I'll admit, like you said, I'm a neutral observer in all this. I will admit my bias, because I watched Michael McCarron play with the London Knights for a long time, and I've always followed the career. I've talked to him a number of times. I know the battles that he's been through personally, and he's come out the other end. So I don't necessarily cheer for teams. I cheer for people. Like, I want people to do well. I want people to succeed at life through their careers, whether it's hockey or something else. So even though I'm supposed to be this, national media presence that reports impartially, when it comes to players like Michael McCarron, I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, it's a great story, and he is a class guy. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, here's another one that you would give great perspective to our listeners, because it was kind of under the radar. After Chris McFarland was hired and you had the big press conference and he was asked all the questions, a few days later, here comes Rob Blake, who, some of our listeners, maybe our younger listeners, wouldn't remember his greatness as a player, but a longtime GM in the league. Give us maybe what he will add to complement Chris McFarland.
Big picture. Like Chris, like this will kind of be a situation. It's a great question, because this is more similar than it is different with how he was working with the Colorado Avalanche, where a lot was overseen by another Hall of Famer, interestingly enough, from the same team, the Avalanche, in Joe Sakic. So where I think that, like I brought up the example of Sam Malinsky, with the Colorado Avalanche looking for efficiency. Like, Chris McFarland is great rolling up his sleeves and getting all of that done. Like, I'll give you another name, Parker Kelly. Parker Kelly is someone that Ottawa didn't have room for. Really good player, really good value player. And as we saw throughout, the regular season and specifically into the playoffs, a guy like Parker Kelly became a really valuable asset for the Colorado Avalanche for pennies on the dollar. So McFarland can do that, where he can work in concert with Rob Blake on the sort of overarching long-term strategy, not unlike how he worked with Joe Sakic with the Colorado Avalanche to do the same thing. So it's always good to have, someone focused on the day-to-day and the short term. And if that person as well can have an eye on the long term and work with someone who could do the big picture, like Rob Blake, who has a background in LA as a general manager as well, I think it's a really good setup. So it's probably the setup that Chris McFarland is most comfortable with. So I don't think there should be any surprise that Rob Blake is in the mix. And full disclosure, too, when this search first started, Rob Blake was one of the first names that we heard.
All right, leave us with this.
Okay.
You're a good historian. Have there ever been 3 better games to start a Stanley Cup final from drama?
Okay, let me frame it this way. I think the best year in the history of hockey was 1987. And there was Canada Cup 87. There was Rendezvous, which doesn't get talked about enough as one of the elite 2-game tournaments of all time in the NHL. There was the Easter Epic between the New York Islanders and the Washington Capitals. Mason versus Kelly, Kelly Rudy, like staring each other down the ice. Pat LaFontaine with the overtime winner. And there were a lot more things that happened that year. But for me, that was the best Stanley Cup final ever. That was the Philadelphia Flyers and the Edmonton Oilers. I had never heard the Spectrum in Philadelphia as loud in Game 6 when J.J. Daigneault scored that game-winning goal to send it to a Game 7. And then we had Hextall chopping down Kent Nilsson. Like, it was a perfect combination of high skill and violence, for lack of a better term, all at the same time. So I've kind of used 1987 Philadelphia Edmonton as the benchmark. So I don't know if this one's going to end up as the best 7-game series. I hope we get there to rival 1987. But as far as the first 3 games, I would submit we haven't seen 3 games. We've probably seen 8 games so far. Like honestly, how many games was that game on Saturday? Like, there was
At least 3.
There were 4 records set in the same game. What? Like, Marner knocks off Rocket Richard for the fastest. Rocket Richard. They didn't have a trophy after him. Like, Marner knocks that record off. Like, 4 NHL records set in that one single game. A glorious comeback by the Hurricanes. A couple of goals called back. Like, honestly, by the end, guys, I'm waiting for a streaker. I'm like, what else are we going to see? Someone's going for, like, what? And we're seeing everything in this game. Like, someone's going to run out onto the ice naked. That's how I was feeling about this game. So it may only technically be 3 games that we've seen, and they've all been bangers, but it kind of felt like we've seen 8 games so far.
Jeff Marek has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. You can catch him every weekday on The Sheet on Daily Faceoff. Jeff, as always, a pleasure. We'll let you know how we do with our golf ball stacking. We'll get back to you.
I love the golf ball idea. Listen, I've heard some dumb stuff coming out of the combine. That's one of the more interesting ones. Good on Nashville.
We appreciate you, Jeff. Thanks so much.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Jeff had to say. You can as well. 615-737-1025. Willy, Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, if you've lived in Middle Tennessee for any time, then you see how wild our weather can be. From winter storms, tornadoes, to flooding, we've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storms earlier this year caught me unprepared. I lost power for 7 days. That's 7 days out of my house in a hotel, worrying about whether my pipes are going to burst or not. That's when I realized being prepared isn't optional. I'll be ready the next time a weather emergency happens. I started looking for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great. But the reason I chose to reach out with them and ultimately go with them was because of the reviews and the confidence other homeowners share with their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When Tri-State came to my home, they did a free on-site assessment and made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family's needs. The thing I appreciated the most was they didn't try to oversell me on anything, just straight answers, turnkey, and they handle everything from installations to long-term services. If anything ever goes wrong, I'm not calling around, which I hate to do. I'm making one call, and that's the Tri-State Water, Power, and Air, because they've got me covered. I know that's the kind of relationship I want, and I know that's the kind of relationship you want. Look, the weather isn't slowing down much. It's pouring right now as we speak. So be ready. Call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect your home and your family. Find them at tristatewhywait.com. That's tristatewhywait.com.
DMase, Vin Gnandonik, 1025 The Game. Indeed, blame it on the rain. At least over here, it appears to be clearing, but stay safe out there. Take it slow if you're driving home. Be safe. We'll be here for you. With Jeff, he is a hockey encyclopedia. And he brought up the idea of an offer sheet for the Nashville Predators. And if I'm Chris McFarland, I'm thinking long and hard about this. It doesn't happen very often in the NHL, but if the Predators want to be competitive sooner rather than later, they are going to need players in the age range who are eligible for offer sheets because they are restricted free agents. They are younger. They're in their early to mid-20s. That is the age range that the Predators so desperately need. They've got up-and-comers, Matthew Wood, for instance, but Matthew Wood is just getting his feet wet in the NHL. We're talking about established young players in the NHL. So, for example, I was looking at a list of potential offer sheet candidates during the break, and one name that popped up to me was Zach Benson of the Buffalo Sabres. I loved watching Zach Benson, especially in the playoffs for the Buffalo Sabres. The Predators need a player like Zach Benson, a young player who can score a lot of goals, who can get under the other team's skin. I'm pulling up Zach Benson's statistics at the moment. Zach Benson, 21 years old. He had 43 points this season, 13 goals, 30 assists. Predators could certainly use someone like that. And the Predators have all the ammo. The key, of course, for an offer sheet is you have to use your own picks. So the Predators can't use the picks they've acquired in trades. But Willy, as you mentioned to me, the Predators have so many other teams' picks, they can afford to get rid of some of their own if they want to.
Yeah, I don't think you can do 5 offer sheets. But I think that's the brilliant. That's why I think everybody is intrigued with it so much, because you have to really do a lot of forethinking and probably do the best you can at gauging the other team. And so let's just say Zach Benson is the guy. Do you just blindly throw at the Buffalo Sabres? First of all, you have to get Zach Benson to sign it, right? That's the first thing.
Yes.
If the player doesn't sign it, then it doesn't matter. So you have to gauge his interest. If he's not interested, he's not going to sign it. But then you have to sort of do the best you can to determine, is Buffalo going to match this? Because if we think they're going to match it, it's not worth the time and energy to go through the process, right? You might as well be doing something else because you're essentially just doing the deal for them. In fact, Montreal famously, however many summers ago this was, they tried to do that to Sebastian Aho of the Hurricanes, who's still playing. He's going to be playing tonight. He's one of the best players on the Hurricanes. Has been a backbone for them for a long time. Montreal, the big market, original 6 team, was like, Carolina's having money problems. Let's go for Sebastian Aho. They're not going to match it. And within about 4 hours of him signing the offer sheet, and I can't remember exactly who the guy was at the time, but the GM of the Hurricanes, I want to say it was McLean. Does that sound right?
Don Waddell, perhaps?
Don Waddell. He said, hey, thanks, guys. You just did the deal for us. We're going to have Sebastian Aho for the next 8 years or whatever it is, because now he didn't have to work out all the minuscule details. You're like, hey, now we've got him. So that's the part of the offer sheet. But do the Predators have the tools to do it? Absolutely. It's just a matter of, can you pick the right team and the right player to where that team is going to say, we got to let him go and take the compensation.
And this is something that we will get more into tomorrow. Once again, last call for submissions for my Predators off-season survey. You can find it on my Twitter account at Adam Vingan. The station account at 1025 The Game has also shared it as well. I will be closing the survey tonight and we will reveal and analyze the results tomorrow. And let me just tell you, there are a lot of interesting results in this survey in terms of how Predators fans are feeling about the state of the franchise now that it is under new management. I can tell you, spoiler alert, a little spoiler alert, a lot of people are feeling optimistic about the direction of the franchise. I can't recall the last time Predators fans felt incredibly optimistic about the direction of the franchise, but the hiring of Chris McFarland, I think, reflects well on Bill Haslam. Chris McFarland, who could be GM of the year. I'm not sure when they're announcing that award. Probably soon. He could be GM of the year. The addition of Rob Blake, a seasoned GM, a Hockey Hall of Fame player, as his number 2. I can understand why Predators fans are feeling optimistic, but we will get more into that tomorrow because, as I said, a lot of interesting results in this survey.
And I think this is a question that I would love to hear some feedback on tomorrow from the listeners, but doesn't it usually traditionally, and let's just take University of Tennessee, just give a different reference. When you're the new guy hired, usually you get that wave of optimism, right? It's like hope is at an all-time high. We got a new guy. So that is probably a question of what do you do when you have that belief, right? You have the ability to take it any direction you want, and the fans are still going to be in that window of let's see what the new guys got, right? Especially in Nashville, where a lot of the fans were excited to have some new ideas, somebody from outside the family. What kind of factor do you think that is, Adam? Clearly, the responses to your survey would indicate that hope has gone up just because he's a new guy and he's coming from a successful situation.
I think a lot of it has to do with that. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Predators hired someone with no previous ties to the organization. And I was bummed to learn last week that Brian Poyle is no longer a member of the organization. He's a good man. But I know a lot of Predators fans wanted a Poyle-less front office. And for the first time in Predators history, there aren't any Poyles in the front office. Again, that's no knock on Brian Poyle or David Poyle. Two very good men. David Poyle, a Hall of Fame GM. But I think the combination of McFarland and Blake coming in, the departure of Brian Poyle, I believe David Poyle is staying on as an advisor, but he's not going to be involved in the day-to-day. I think that combination certainly generates the optimism I appear to be seeing in this survey. So,
yeah, I mean, it's always, I think it's always going to be that, especially, when you have a team that's been in a position that the Predators have been in for the last couple of years. You're looking for change. You're looking for optimism. And then, you go out and you get someone that has been a part of building a winning culture. Why wouldn't you be optimistic about, because you have nothing else to go on but his track record. And his track record says that he's capable of building and sustaining a winning culture or a winning team. So you hope that he brings that here to Nashville with the Predators.
He's got some street cred too,
yes.
Just because of the success of the Avs, and people here, they've watched so many battles with Colorado over the years. They know what that franchise is about. So I think that brings a lot. Let's circle real quick back to the offer sheet, Adam, because I think you hit on a point that probably should be thought about. There's no question that anybody could look at that roster and say they've got a lot of young players, and many of which, as much as you want to see them blossom right now, realistically, it's still going to take another year or two before you really know about a lot of these guys. And you've got the 30-somethings that are the headliners, and they don't have a lot of guys in between. They've got a few. But when you go after the guy with the offer sheet, that is exactly the age range that you're shooting for, right? So a lot of people who are the analytics people say more people should do offer sheets because it's well worth the draft capital in most cases, right? Percentage-wise. Now, there's always the chance that if you're if it takes a first and a second or 2 seconds and a third, whatever the compensation is, that one of those picks could turn into a great player. But the law of averages says that a known quantity is going to be worth the draft compensation more often than not, right? Because a lot of times third-round picks are guys that you never hear of. It still could be UC Saros, but there's also a chance that could be a guy that never plays in the league.
615.
It's much more of a chance, really.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Willy Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.